I don't know how many of you know who this wonderful man to my right really is. He said a little bit about himself in terms of his training with the great African-American muralist John Biggers. But this is a man who has been working for probably at least 4 decades as an activist with art. And you're seeing some of his beautiful images behind us now. In Texas, in Colorado, he has traveled in different parts of the country. He works with young people, and he does a great deal to inspire connection between social justice activism and the beauty and power that comes out of visual art. I would like to ask Leo Tanguma, as someone who has been on this road for a long time, if you would tell us a little bit about what first inspired you to become an artist, and then what keeps you doing that now? What keeps you inspired to be an artist?
Thank you. There's one little story I'd like to tell you about my youth, because my family still are Protestants, and we lived in a Chicano neighborhood where we were the only Protestant family there. And that neighborhood also had African Americans that were mainly Baptists or some other kind of Protestants. So across from our home lived a family that had an elderly grandpa with them. And he and some other elderly men there would meet and sing hymns or drink coffee and talk. And my grandfather, who didn't speak English, but he knew the sound and what the hymns were in Spanish, right? So he would go over and sit with them and drink coffee, and then he'd say, "Oh, I know that one in Spanish," right? And so he'd sing it in Spanish. And me and this little boy named Leroy from that same house would sit around and listen to this older men sing, religious hymns in English and then sometimes in Spanish by my grandfather. And he would say, "Oh, that sounds pretty good, yeah." And my grandfather would say, "Ah, que bien, que bien." And so I had that little bit of a background there. But what really got me started painting murals without having any notion that that's what I was doing was in the 5th grade when we were left without a teacher for a long time. Apparently the teacher had gotten sick and they were waiting for a substitute to come in. So everybody runs out to the blackboard and starts drawing. And I was I guess a little shy, so I didn't want to go up there at first. I thought I might get in trouble, right? So eventually I did walk up to the blackboard, and I was about to start drawing. I don't have no idea what, but somebody from the classroom said, "Polo," that was what people called me, "Píntame a mí matando al sherife." Draw me killing the sheriff, right? Now, recently I've written about this, but I remember thinking, "Why, that's a great idea," right? Like everybody else in the classroom, because we had in our little town of Beeville, Texas, a murderer's, it seems to me today, a mad, racist sheriff. Recently he had killed my mother's cousin and 2 other men for no reason with a submachine gun. And this must have been like 1939 or so. So it was not within my time that had happened, but it was fresh in everybody's minds, right? So I thought that was a wonderful idea to draw this monster, and I began to draw this man hanging or laying down on the ground with a lot of us kids. And some of the kids in the classroom would say, "Put my name next to that one, put my name next to that one," because we were all stabbing and hanging the sheriff by the neck. Well, without me realizing, the substitute had come in and was standing behind me. When I turned to look at the kids, there was this gigantic woman standing behind me and kind of snarling at me, it seems. But she understood real clearly what I was doing, and I'm really proud to this day. This is 1952. And so I ran back to my seat, but she called me back and said, "Erase this garbage now." And I erased it, and I ran to sit down. But before I could go sit down, she came and hit me on the back with a ruler. I don't know how many times, 3 or 4 times at least. But I thought I was finished erasing, so I ran back to my seat and she said, come back here. But by now I was crying and I couldn't see the blackboard or the images on the blackboard. And she hit me a few more times and then I was done erasing. But that was one of those memories that today I can say that was my first mural. And it was like the community asking me to interpret their feelings, right? To speak of that which was pent up in our community, because we seemed so helpless in the midst of an Anglo community that kept vindicating this monstrous sheriff, okay, over and over. He even killed an African American man in cuffs, with his hands cuffed behind his back. He killed him, and then he claimed that he was trying to attack him, right, inside the sheriff's office. And he killed a number of other people. Finally, some Chicanos, 3 Chicanos shot him so many times, but the guy didn't die, okay? But we tried in some ways, at least in my case, by trying to respond to what was asked of me. And I hope that provided some kind of healing also for the community, because this went on, and after those killings, others came about. And then sometime recently, I met a librarian from Vivial, Texas, saying that he was writing a book about Sheriff Ennis, and I didn't want to tell him anything. I was just kind of angry that anybody would be writing about that man. But that was the attitude in Texas in those days, and I think still somewhat today, where it was important for the law enforcement to keep Mexicans in line. Okay, and it was similar to what the black experience must have been, but not as severe, I know. But from living in that neighborhood with black families, neighbors, and then being a little bit of outcast, because people used to call us Alleluias, you know, that was a bad name, okay. But so that's the way I developed initially. And then, as I said, like in the early 60s, there was this feeling in the community that we needed to draw on that wall right there, right? Draw something. And of course, we were untrained, very, very simple. Most of us farm workers in the smaller towns. But, so we didn't paint very, very good, okay? So that, but what we did express was something that was felt by the whole community. And then in the city, later on in Houston, I also began painting murals, large murals on the streets in the barrios, right? And then one day, I got a call from this lady named Susan Newman that was coming from the housing project CUNY Homes in 3rd Ward. And she wanted to meet with me, so I said, okay. She came over one day, and she told me about this project that they had at CUNY Homes with theater, addressing the problems of the young people, not only by actors from out of there, from someplace else, but from the very young community that was there. This young man named Thomas Melanson, the playwright, would train these young actors, and then they would have this fantastic plays informing the rest of the young people in the community, and adults too. What were the problems? How did it feel to be in jail? All kinds of images that the plays brought forth, and at the end of each of these plays, then there was a discussion with the young people that was always crowded with young people, because they loved art, right? They loved drama. Anyway, so I was wondering what the lady was going to say, right, coming to visit me. So she said, we would like for you to do murals with young people at CUNY Homes. And I had thought that she needed help, like writing a program, art program with kids from my experience that I'd had. So I was so amazed. Besides that, the kind of life that I lived in those days was from one project to another, and in between trying to paint signs to make a living.